So I have pulled up the website here on the CDC's homepage where it talks about toxic substances and disease and how these toxic substances can affect people. Now, as you know, right now I'm putting myself at risk by making this video. I'm already on the radar because I've been exposing a lot of things here within the state of Ohio, things that I've found out. And as I've made videos and exposed it, they did not like it. So, like I said, this puts me at a risk, but I want to speak out because, if there is something that is affecting the people have a right to know, and the people have a right to be informed because we are the people and we're supposed to be protected. We, the people, are supposed to be kept safe and informed if there are any type of potential dangers or threats to our safety, to our health, or anything else. Now, as you know, there was a train derailment in the state of Ohio in East Palestine on February 3rd, 2023, where a train had actually derailed, and this car was carrying a lot of hazardous substances and chemicals. And so it posed a threat for being explosive. So the authorities, and I'm not sure if it was the governor, the EPA, I know they were all involved with handling this derailment. And so in order to prevent an explosion, they made a decision to slowly release of these gases and toxins by burning them off into the air. And so they burned off these chemicals. And one of the chemicals that they found, one of the primary chemicals that they talked about was vinyl chloride. So I want to look at these effects because a lot of the people, because when this was burned off these gases, it formed some type of a plume or a cloud, and it kind of hovered over the areas of East Palestine and within the northern parts of Pennsylvania, because this happened around the border of Pennsylvania, around Pittsburgh area, and they said it also affected the panhandle of West Virginia. And so since this had happened, since this derailment and the burning of the chemicals, a lot of residents and people in areas of Pennsylvania have actually spoken out about having adverse effects, which they felt were a result of this derailment and the chemicals being released into the air. And a lot of them have complained of respiratory issues, such as shortness of breath, having problems with their breathing. Some of them complain about having burning of their eyes, burning of their throats and their skin. Others have complained about having diarrhea. Now, the governor has spoken out that the water is safe. The contaminated water has actually been obstructed and blocked off where it cannot affect other parts of the water. It cannot get into other parts of the canals, and that the water is safe to drink. They're saying that the chemicals are no longer in the air, and so there's no threat right now, but they're going to continue to monitor everything. So I just want to look at the effects of vinyl chloride and take a look at this and see what's going on here. Now it says, persons exposed only to vinyl chloride gas pose no risk of secondary contamination. So, all right, that's there. Then it says, persons whose clothing or skin is contaminated with pressurized liquid vinyl chloride can secondarily contaminate rescuers by direct contact or through off-gassing of vapor. It says, inhalation is the major route of vinyl chloride exposure. Absorption is rapid and nearly complete. Now, what is vinyl chloride? It says vinyl chloride is a colorless, highly flammable, potentially explosive gas, okay? The odor threshold for vinyl chloride is about 3,000 ppm in air. So it has to be about 3,000 ppms for you to even smell it. And a lot of people complain of smelling chemicals. So now it says here, when burned or heated to a high enough temperature, vinyl chloride decomposes to hydrogen chloride, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and traces of phosgene. Now let's look at routes of exposure. It says inhalation. Inhalation is the primary route of exposure, and vinyl chloride is readily absorbed from the lungs. So inhaling it, it's in the air. If it's in the air, you can inhale this and it gets into the lungs. Its odor threshold is too high to provide an adequate warning of hazardous concentrations. The odor of vinyl chloride becomes detectable at around 3,000 ppm. So it has to be at least 3,000 ppm for you to smell the odor of vinyl chloride. Then it says, therefore, workers can be overexposed to vinyl chloride without being aware of its presence. A 5-minute exposure to airborne concentrations of 8,000 ppm can cause dizziness. So at about 8,000 ppm, dizziness can start to occur. And there were some people who talked about, being dizzy or whatever. Now, it says as airborne levels increase to 20,000 ppm, effects can include drowsiness, loss of coordination, visual and auditory abnormalities, disorientation, nausea, headache, and burning or tingling of the extremities. Now, again, people did complain of headaches. People did complain of having skin irritants such as burning of their eyes and their skin. So they talked about burning in their throats. So as you can see here, it says it has to be at about 20,000 ppms for these effects to take place. Now, it says exposure to higher concentrations of vinyl chloride for longer durations can cause death, presumably due to central nervous system, and respiratory depression. So that's what it says here. It also says children exposed to the same levels of vinyl chloride as adults receive a larger dose because they have a greater lung surface, and that their stature is smaller, so they'll actually receive a higher dose and higher levels than the adults because of their short stature and their lung capacity. So let's look at how it affects the skin and eyes. So when you have skin and eye contact, now this is direct skin contact with escaping compressed gas or liquid vinyl chloride. It can cause frostbite injury, but systemic absorption is negligible. It says direct ocular exposure to vinyl chloride vapor can cause localized burns or irritation of the conjunctiva and cornea. Now, let's see. Let's take a look at the health effects. It says the primary target of vinyl chloride acute exposure is the central nervous system. Signs and symptoms include dizziness, ataxia. Ataxia is some type of coordination problem, deals with balance and coordination, things like that. Parts of the brain that control that. Inebriation, fatigue, numbness, and tingling of the extremities. Visual disturbances, coma, and death. So some of these cases are a little more extreme. Vinyl chloride can irritate the eyes. As you know, a lot of people talked about eye irritation, mucous membranes, and respiratory tract. Escaping compressed gas or liquid can cause frostbite or irritation of the skin and eyes. It says chronic exposure can cause permanent liver injury and liver cancer, neurologic or behavioral symptoms, and changes to the skin and bones of the hands. Vinyl chloride's acute central nervous system effects are likely to be caused by interaction of the parent compound with neural membrane. So this is all neurological. It's inhaled. It gets to the affects parts of the brain, and it says other effects appear to be caused by interaction of reactive intermediates with macromolecules. Now let's look at the acute exposure. It says vinyl chloride is thought to depress the central nervous system via its solvent effects on lipids and protein components of neural membranes that interrupts signal transmissions. So let's see here, CNS. Okay, this is the central nervous system. It says the central nervous system is the primary target of vinyl chloride acute toxicity. The symptoms reported most commonly stem from the anesthetic properties of vinyl chloride. These symptoms include dizziness, ataxia, fatigue, drowsiness, headache, and loss of consciousness. With inhalation exposure, signs and symptoms increase in severity over a range of 8,000 to 20,000 ppm air. So depending on the level of exposure, these symptoms can increase or worsen. So as you see it says from a range of 8,000 to 20,000 ppm. And so we looked for it earlier, as you saw, the levels of what can happen due to how much ppm is in the air. I'm not sure how much ppm was released into the air, but based off what people are saying that they've experienced and based off what it states here, what can occur at those levels of ppm, that can kind of give you a gauge of how much ppm of vinyl chloride was in the air. It says exposure to higher concentrations for longer durations can cause death, presumably due to CNS and respiratory depressions. Sublethal CNS effects resolve quickly when the victim is removed from further exposure. So it says here when they're removed from further exposure, it can dissipate. These effects can quickly dissipate. So that there tells you, being exposed to in a prolonged exposure environment and staying in this, if that is still going on, we don't know. They're saying everything is safe. They're saying the air is safe. Again, we don't know how the effects what effects occurred during the time this was all released, this gas, and how long this gas was burning, what actually happened, how much exposure was done. That's something that, the specialists would know. Now let's look at the respiratory. It says vinyl chloride gas inhalation can cause mild respiratory tract irritation, wheezing, and chemical bronchitis. I actually read in one of the comments after, looking at one of the videos where someone who was in Pennsylvania State, they had to go to the emergency room because they had a shortness of breath, and they were near that area, very close to that area. It says these effects are transient and resolve quickly following removal from exposure. So again, the emphasis on removal from exposure. It says death may result from respiratory depression. So this is talking about cardiovascular. Vinyl chloride may lower the myocardial threshold to the dysrhythmogenic effects of catecholamines, and it might predispose patients to ventricular ectopy and fibrillation. So these are talking about heart problems. And then it says in animals, exposure to vinyl chloride has led to ECG abnormalities, including ventricular ectopy or heart block and T-wave inversions. So, again, this is talking more about the gastrointestinal and ocular and dermal effects. And it says exposure to escaping compressed gas or liquid can cause frostbite injury with redness, blistering, and scaling. So these are all skin problems. This is how it affects the skin. You can have something that resembles like a frostbite, or you can have redness and blistering of your skin. Dermatitis has also been reported. Ocular exposure can cause from the escaping of compressed gas or liquid. Can cause, again, injury with corneal and conjunctival irritations or burns. High concentrations of vapors can cause eye irritation. So then it talks about nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, epigastric pains. That's reported with ingestion. So again, this is, let's look here at the chronic exposure. This is just over a period of time for prolonged periods. Prolonged absorption of vinyl chloride can induce hepatotoxicity and hepatic cancers, including angiosarcoma. So again, if you're in a prolonged situation, this can lead to these more detrimental side effects and ailments. So again, that tells you everything there. Let me see, anything else? So as you're looking at this, I am just showing the effects here. So inhalation is the major route of exposure. Again, so it makes you question what happened between that time, this was being burned, this gas was being burned and released into the air and the atmosphere, and how long was it burning? How far did this plume go? I mean, how far was this able to travel? It depends on the wind and where to carry it and how much of effect did it cause. And if those people were on that site, I mean, they did evacuate the area, but did anyone stay there? I mean, and when they came back, was the gas still in the air? I mean, those are questions to look at and ask. I'm not saying anything here. I don't have any input. I'm not a specialist or an expert. Again, I'm just going by what's on this website. And I'm looking at that. I'm going by all of the numerous videos that show all these people talking about the adverse effects that they're now having. All of these sicknesses, those who have felt ill, who are complaining about still feeling ill. And, even if there's nothing there now, like I said, what actually, it's like when this was being burned, what took effect during that time it was being burned. So again, like I said, I'm just here to report that. I've already been, put on the radar because I myself have been dealing with a lot of stuff in the state of Ohio. I've been dealing with a lot of things where, like I said, there's been retaliation. My kids have been taken out of the home because I've spoken out about things. My children have been kept from me. Every time I expose things, they get upset and they penalize me by keeping me from seeing my kids, or have even gone to extremes of having me taken out by the police and put in a mental institution, have said that I was mentally ill without even giving me a mental health evaluation, or even once they did give me a mental health evaluation, never even let me see the results of the evaluation. So I know the effects of how people can do things and cover up things when they want to. And this stuff is corrupt. I'm not saying that's the case here, but people need to be informed. You need to get awareness and knowledge of your own and start researching and learning your rights, because, we as the people, we have rights, and our rights should not be violated. We should not be put in a position where we're threatened with being removed from our homes, or having our children taken from us, or being penalized against, arrested, or anything because we decide to speak out about our rights and problems. Like I said, I'm already jeopardizing myself because I have already spoken out about a lot of things, a lot of cover-ups that the Lord has brought to my attention. And the only thing at this point that can save you is prayer, being informed of your rights, being fully aware, acknowledging yourself, getting information, enlightening yourself, seeking different measures of what type of routes of safety and, help that you can get, whatever other avenues you can take. But like I said, again, what has helped me, I have been praying. A lot of stuff has been told to me, and I have been praying, and God has been showing me things. So this is how I was getting my knowledge, and I've been doing my own research. So again, you have to stay informed. You have to do your research and trust in God, because like I said, a lot of times people can cover up things for their own motives, their own intentions. And I know at this point there's a back and forth going on whether the train railroad company is accountable, or if it's the officials and how they handled it in the state of Ohio where it happened. I mean, at this point, the most crucial thing is taking care of the people, making sure they're safe, not pointing, passing fingers back and forth. I mean, everyone needs to do what they need to do to make sure that the people are safe. At the end of the day, that is what matters most, not pushing blame on whoever it is. Everyone needs to take initiative and handle their role that they've been hired to do, and do it properly and effectively, to make sure that people are taken care of. That is what's supposed to be done, not passing of the judgment back on who it is. You can handle that after everything is situated.